Cool. So we've got a really exciting topic today, trailblazing in crypto product development. And the brave organizers let a salesperson do it. So I'll be asking all the questions you always wanted to ask, I hope. So thanks so much for joining us today, guys. I think we'd like to try and touch on three aspects of product development in crypto. So the one is like the process itself, because it's really interesting for me at least, what some of the differences might be or the challenges in developing a product in our fast-moving industry compared to, say, within traditional finance. And then we'll try and dig in a little bit to the products themselves because we have the experts with us, so perfect time to ask questions. And then look at what we can expect in the future, right? So we hit an all-time high yesterday for BTCs, really exciting. And hopefully that means that really pushes the industry forward in terms of new products too. So I'll ask the panelists to do a quick intro of themselves and the companies to kick us off. And just to keep it interesting, if you could have developed one crypto product, which one would it be? So what did you wish that you'd done? So we can start with Dan, maybe, if you're ready. Or...
Sure, thanks, and thanks for the invitation. My name is Capraro, Chief Product Officer at YAPEAL and one of the co-founder. We founded YAPEAL 2018 with 15 co-founders. Originally have been in the retail, traditional finance wallet. Then we pivoted into business banking and now serving banking as a service as our main purpose. Being fully fintech licensed in Switzerland was the first company that ever received that license, and having a Visa principal membership to issue cards for us and our third parties. So the product that I would have invented, and as speaking there more from the traditional finance side, I thought this Libra idea at that moment was really great. I would have it done more independent, not strictly attached to the meta world. So from that point of view, an independent network where you can transform or transfer funds over borders, that would be something that is quite awesome, because still in our days, international payment is one of the big pain points, and I think that would be a huge potential to solve.
Cool.
Hello, I'm Arnaud Salomon. I'm the CEO and founder of Pelerin. Pelerin is basically a simple on and off ramp solution, and we serve two types of clients. There is a large retail base, obviously, that are using an app or the web, and we also serve the high net worth individuals. Mostly, I would say, 80% on the cash out side right now. So like crypto whales trying to cash out part of their wealth into Swiss private banks. So we work closely with Swiss private banks on those topics to document the origin of the fund and to make sure that the funds are indeed bankable. As to what would be the product that I would have loved to have built myself, that would be something like a decentralized exchange, like Uniswap. Cool. This is something that I'm truly in love with, obviously. And this is also something we did work on it. And before Uniswap was a thing, we did create one of those. Maybe we can discuss it later on. Somehow we never launched it, and I will explain maybe later why.
Cool. Yeah, looking forward to hearing that.
Hi, my name's Eva Lawrence. I am the head of EMEA for Figment. Figment are the leading institutional staking provider. We work with everyone from VCs, hedge funds, asset managers, all the way through to exchanges and banks to help offer staking services to them and their clients. We also partner with all of the leading crypto custodians to offer these services. I'm London-based, but I enjoy being in Switzerland as well, and looking forward to our discussion today, Stephanie. And then in terms of the product, I think that it's really difficult to pick one, because I think in the industry we're all working on so many different things that every day we're slowly kind of chipping away at achievements, improvements within the industry. But I'd say maybe a more topical product or launch, depending on how you look at it, I I'm really excited by is Deutsche Börse's announcement in terms of spot crypto trading. I've been previously working with the banks who've been trying to offer something like that for the last 6 years. So the fact that they were able to get that off the ground and launch something there, I think is a real testament to the team and is a great progress for the industry as well.
That's really awesome. And just so everybody knows, I didn't align with Eva beforehand and ask her to say that. But yeah.
So my name's Yves Holenstein. I'm head of custody and staking at Bitcoin Suisse. We're one of Europe's oldest crypto financial service providers, around for 11 years now. And we started with brokerage, then added custody, staking, payments, lending businesses, and most recently investment products. And also very happy to be finally in Geneva. Live so close but never make it. And actually you took my idea. I would think of Uniswap because they really enabled all of DeFi that we basically know and initiated all this creativity on building financial products. So an automatic market maker, a DEX, decentralized exchange. But if I would have to pick something else, I'd probably say inventing the ERC20 standard. That was another one of those initial moments which then, it also triggered a lot of scams because everybody could build tokens for whatever using that standard. But it was also a big enabler for many projects that wanted to get into the token business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is really a big topic within the crypto space, isn't it? It's standardization and you know, how we all start to build on the same base, or at least compatible base layers. So, I mean, Yves, Bitcoin Suisse, I think it's fair to say that you know, when it comes to sort of the banking license discussions, regulation has always been a hot topic. How does that impact your product development process? Like, how do you think about regulation as you develop new products?
I would say we're working very much like a TradFi institution in the way we develop products. So I would say more than half of the time, at least, maybe not all the effort, but the time that goes into developing new efforts is really dealing with all the legal clarifications, compliance clarifications, and risk management. And then there's always a certain uncertainty with many of the decisions because there's just no court decisions. There's no jurisdiction or anything that you can base on. So you always have to decide, do I want to take that risk and potentially get fined or whatever, or do I play it safe and then miss out? So that's really a large part, and very often we don't do things. And I think it's most prominent in the area of DeFi, because most of what DeFi enables is permissionless, which means I do not, in most cases, I do not know who else is involved in using the protocol, which is by definition an issue talking about when talking about AML and KYC topics. So that basically makes a lot of DeFi ideas impossible. And those that are compliant or claim to be compliant, they're usually playing in such a small niche that there's no real business case behind them.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, I mean, this is talking as a player out of Switzerland, right? And actually we're quite far ahead in terms of the regulatory landscape and the legal landscape, right? And you mentioned the precedents. I mean, also the legal system, as I understand it, is also different in Switzerland, that you don't have sort of the case law kind of approach, say, as in countries like the UK and South Africa. And I mean, Eva, you are looking at products more as well as an infrastructure provider, non-custodial staking provider. How do you see it? I mean, does regulation impact your business when you service these institutional clients?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think, you know, you've got the advantage here that in Switzerland, there is some clearer regulation. If you compare it to the rest of the world, even to the UK, someone was asking me that question just yesterday. Do I think that the UK or Switzerland is further ahead in terms of regulation? And I would say Switzerland is further ahead, has clearer regulation. That brings, some things that you have to address and that you have to focus on as you're thinking about launching new products, but also at least it brings some clarity. And the other thing to think about is, well, what about going forward? Do you build products to trying to predict where the regulators will go next? And that's, that could be a game of chance, a game of luck. But I think, you do want to keep in mind the general guidance from regulators. So there are areas such as staking. If you look at staking in, say, the UK, where there's not strict guidance around staking, the same under MiCA, there's no strict guidance around staking. But you understand, the general view of the regulators, and what we focus on is, rather than necessarily predicting, we are conscious of the views of the regulators around, smart contract risk, around pooling of assets. And so we will always look to have an open dialogue with the regulators and bear this in mind when we're building products. We'd rather not build something that we know, although it doesn't fall under a particular regulation, it is kind of leaning towards something that they are looking to regulate on. So we kind of are very mindful of that, and that's how we as a company kind of think about this space. Although we're not predicting the future, we're being kind of considerate into how the regulator's moving forward and where we think they'll go next.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, of course, you might think that it's only infrastructure or you're only providing sort of a technology service, but if there isn't like that clarity, you can find yourself going into that red tape. Absolutely.
And it's also a concern for all of our clients, right? A lot of our clients are regulated entities,
Absolutely.
so they need to work with a partner that is also focused on these areas. Even though they might not be the ones regulated, they still need to be coming at this, from that mindset. I worked at Morgan Stanley for 8.5 years. And previously in a legal role and then trading, and you kind of see how working with large entities, that kind of mindset needs to be brought across, needs to apply in crypto as well. Regulation and compliance, are still a key factor for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that these large institutions might actually have a good chance. You mentioned Deutsche Börse to push the industry in a certain way. And I think, Yves, you had some comments, and I'd love to hear your view a little bit around also, once you already have products on a platform, for example, how that impacts your process. So, not once you have products, if you already have clients and that are using your existing products, how that changes your process.
Yeah, thank you. I would like just first to react to Eva and Yves. For us, what we see today is that FINMA is indeed very advanced when it's about the topic of tokenization. So incorporating real-world assets, incorporating shares, incorporating bonds, and whatever you want into tokens. That's very clear in Switzerland because here we basically regulate substance over form. So we don't care if the form is crypto or if the form is paper or if the form is Excel, right? Whereas in Europe, they decided to go with MiCA, so it's really focusing on the form itself. So everything that looks like crypto, then it falls into this regulation. But when it comes to crypto itself, in Switzerland, FINMA is not that very open today. It's still, they receive a lot of pressure, of course, from the FATF, and there are a lot of things like that. And to come back to the earlier topic that was mentioning about the DEXs, the decentralized exchanges. So back in 2017, we created a DEX. We were very proud of this product. Somehow our legal counsel, they told us, no. Before releasing it, you should actually ask a no action letter from FINMA. That was the worst advice ever, because it took 2 years. Yeah, so of course the market has moved, Uniswap then popped up and had the success that we all know. And of course 2 years later, after asking every 6 months for an answer, we finally got an answer. But this answer was obviously basically empty. So it was not really a no, but it was not a yes at all. And it was also the list of all the enforcement that we risk if we screw up in the process. So of course we didn't release such a product. Yeah. And today what we see is that most of the biggest protocols today, they are in Switzerland. They never ask permission, and nobody now is annoying them. Yeah. So that was to react on that. So for the second question that you asked, yeah, it's actually tough. If you think of it today, we offer a pure on-off-ramp service for users, so especially for retail. So it's in order to connect as easy as possible your bank account with the blockchain world. And now we would like to transition into what we call a self-custodial Revolut. So like the look and feel will be like, using a Revolut, connecting IBANs with addresses, because at the end of the day, an IBAN is a routing system and an address on chain is a routing system. So we need to build those bridges in order to make it seamless working between the two payment rails. Now in that regard, basically we're just updating that much the product that we are also afraid of annoying customers, long-time customers that are very happy with the current product. Yeah, maybe they just don't want that. Yeah, so it's always a bit tricky when when you start. The startup is you're in startup mode. You have 0 client and you focus on the product. Then you have a lot of ideas. You build things, etc. And it goes super fast. When you're already live, you're already serving tens of thousands of clients, and you have to basically, it's not a pivot, but it's an evolution. The process of evolution takes a lot longer. Yeah. A lot longer. First of all, you still need to service the existing customers. You need to make sure they're not breaking things, because otherwise people will be yelling and unhappy, and etc. etc. So it's always kind of balance as to like, should we basically create a new product? Should we make the existing product evolve? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can imagine, and I suppose it's a scalability question, right? Like if you start offering numerous products, and then you have a slightly different target client segments for each product. And I wasn't planning to ask you this, but maybe a quick vote. I mean, what's the optimal number of products to have? Like, is that?
I think that depends on every company. So some companies, they love to multiply the offers, and some wants to have like the simple version, meaning like the one button app,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
there are two schools here. So I mean, some are really focusing on the one button app because easy is the master of everything, and some others, they focus on power users, and power users. They use things that most of the common world would say like it's unusable. If you think of it, I don't know if people know Curve, for example, the Curve protocol. I mean, did they do it on purpose to have such a front end? Because it's I mean, for most average Joe, it's impossible to use. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then some people love it. So, yeah. And I mean, Yves, you also, I mean, as Bitcoin Suisse, you've been in the space since 2013, right? So you definitely are a good example of a company that needs to innovate and add new products with an existing client base. I mean, how's that experience been in terms of also the pivot to slightly more institutional base and trying to roll out new products?
I have just some spontaneous thoughts. Number one is, to be honest, we were very often pushed by our clients to innovate new products. And I think the most obvious one was how we got into staking. So we did do the ICO for a protocol called Tezos. And Tezos was one of the first proof-of-stake protocols that got some traction. And they kind of nudged us into, why don't you offer services for that? And so we were like, yeah, client asks. And now it's our second biggest revenue driver. So sometimes clients actually nudge you into that. And because we have extremely crypto-native client base, they fall into what you just mentioned, power users. So suddenly they're like, oh, this protocol offers on-chain governance voting. We would like to have that. And so suddenly you build for a lot of those clients, sometimes even bespoke. And that's really difficult, that you don't lose your focus. You have, especially since a few years ago when we started going more into the institutional TradFi space, the needs are totally different. It's like a 180-degree split. So you have the crypto natives that want always the newest protocol, the newest features and everything. And then on the TradFi side, you could actually offer Bitcoin and Ethereum and do it with a lot of integration, and they would be happy. And you have only a certain number of developers. And I think one of the biggest difficulties we had, or challenges we had, was always like deciding on where we focus, because we don't want to lose the crypto native client base while starting to cater for the TradFi institutional client base.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely a bit of a crowding out impact, right? And yeah.
And on the client side themselves, doing something, changing something usually means on our side, we always have to like change contracts, and if you have to reach out to 7,000 clients and getting something signed by them within a time frame, that's a huge effort. So we have to focus on making that more streamlined as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, maybe we come back to it at the end, but the other exciting thing is when clients come to you and it's, you know, or sales comes to you and it's a huge business case, huge. And in our market, it's very difficult to evaluate that, right? Like, so Dan, I mean, if you look at sort of the decisions around building versus buying products, I know you coming into this discussion a bit more from an embedded finance perspective. Like, how do you look at that? Like, when should you build versus buy products?
Well, there I think we do have a very good story that was even started before we founded YAPEAL, because make or buy is something that we considered already then. And we found a very innovative core banking solution, and we were very that's something we need to have. And then we met those guys from this startup. That's a blockchain-based core banking solution with smart contracts for the product definition. What could it be better there on the market? That's absolutely top notch. Unfortunately, as time evolved, they became as well on the radar from a tier 1 bank, and they had to first solve their needs. So we got pushed back in the priority list, and based on that, we were forced then to build our own technology based on that. And so in that sentence, it was not a decision that we took our own. It was a decision that we have been forced into. Okay. Today, we profit a lot of it. Having the technology under control, having the freedom in which direction we can develop our product, that's really, I think, our USP at the moment.
Oh, that's really cool. And the fact that you used a provider first and then did it yourself, like, was that, would you do that again? I mean, I know it wasn't a choice, but did it help?
Well, I think there is always a trade-off, and I think you should have a good overview what's on the market. You should not invest your limited development resources in something that you could easily serve from a vendor. But in the regulatory environment, that's always then the case that if you talk about outsourcing, it needs to be fulfill all those requirements too. And from that point of view, at the moment, I would say most of our environment is more on the build our own system, and keeping there as well the legacy freeness, so that we're not partnering up with somebody that brings us then legacy into our system.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And on the crypto finance side, I mean, we have a partnership with Figment, actually. And of course, we're always the number one client, right? But Eva, I mean, how do you look at that, right? Like, why would you encourage providers to use Figment or to use to build versus buy? How do you look at it? And when does it make sense actually to do it yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think staking or otherwise, when you're looking at build versus buy or partner, you should really look at the three things. So firstly, expertise, second, timing, and third, risk. So we have a room here filled with a lot of experts, whether it be custody, trading, risk management, compliance, legal. And at Figment, what we focus on is staking and staking only. We don't have our own wallets set up. We've got no plans to go into the custody business. We purely focus on staking, and we have around 125 people across the globe doing just that. And I think that you first have to take a look at your team and your company and say, what expertise do I have internally that I can leverage? Do I have the expertise needed to run custody, to run staking, to have a liquidity management desk, all of these types of things? Is it something that I can do based on the team that I have? And then obviously if you decide that you want to build yourselves and you decide to hire, well, what will the cost of that be if you don't have the expertise already in-house? And most of the time, when you're looking to launch a product, it's not a one and done. You don't build something and then you say, okay, that's great, I've rolled it out, I never look at it again, we're finished. It's unless it goes wrong, of course. It's continuous monitoring, management, and oversight. So you have to be able to have the expertise and the team to not only get the product off the ground, but to manage it going forward. And then secondly, how quickly are you looking to get the product to market? We were touching on earlier, missing an opportunity and waiting 2 years for the regulator to come back with you. I think the same applies in the buy versus build analysis. When you're looking to launch this product, what is the opportunity cost of building it yourselves? And how long will it take you to do? We often have prospects that I speak to that say, "Yep, Eva, I'm doing this all myself. We've got a team. They're going to be working on it. Yeah, we're going to get this done. We'll be live with staking in a couple of months." And then a couple of months passes, and they call me up and they're like, "So about this staking, it's a lot harder than we thought." So I think that you've got to be realistic about timings. And then thirdly, risk. What happens if something goes wrong? Is it reputational? Or is it like something like staking where if you are, if something goes wrong, if you do this wrong, you can be slashed. That could impact you, that could impact your customers. So that's also something to consider.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think two topics that came up that are particularly interesting is this, either, as you said, you have the pain of doing it yourself and also maintaining it, right? But then otherwise you have to do the DD on your outsourcing provider. And as providers, we all know how painful that can be. And I imagine it depends who you speak to within the organizations as well, right? The IT organizations always want to build it themselves, and business are like, please, can we outsource?
Or maybe just as a comment, what you also have to consider is how much talent is around. And I think there's hardly any developer field that has as scarce resources as the blockchain-related developers. So you almost have to find somebody that helps you out. It's really, really hard to find developers, at least our experience.
And look how you can utilize other people's work, right? So, for example, we have APIs that are made public. You could take a part of your own infrastructure, use APIs from others, and kind of build the midpoint between doing all the work yourself and utilizing what other people have done, and utilizing that expertise and those developers.
Yeah, absolutely. And this focusing on your API versus UI is also an interesting topic, right, within organizations if you have different client bases. And and maybe we could touch a little bit on the specific products within your businesses. And I don't know if you want to kick us off, Arnaud. I had a good look at your website before our discussion and our pre-call. And I would love to hear a little bit more because, as you said, it's, you're doing a lot of cash out and there's a bit of a pivot within the business. So maybe if you could each tell us a bit, starting with Arnaud, about your favorite product in your business.
No, I mean, like we cover a large spectrum, to be honest. So, I mean, we started with the tokenization aspect. So we're quite well known for being the first company to ever incorporate its shares in 2 tokens. Because, of course, at that time, there were a lot of initiative for that, but it was mostly private contractual agreement, right? So it was just a contract between the issuer and the token holder. And if you looked at those contracts at the time, it was mostly a donation token because you know there was always in the contract something saying like, oh, by the way, the issuer can change its mind at any point in time for whatever reason. Yeah. So, so the idea was really to change that craziness of ICOs and all those things at the time, and was to say, no, let's let's not bring another shitcoin on the market, but let's do something that makes sense and that align values with everyone. So we said, okay, let's tokenize shares and let's focus on that, because then people would buy the same shares as we founders do own. So basically it aligns all the incentives for everyone. Yeah. So usually on traditional token market, the incentive of the company is more to dump as much as possible because it's a business model. They earn money out of it. We don't. I mean, it's shares. So there is no reason for me to devalue the value of my own company, right? So so that aligns everything. Yeah. So there's no. On our side, for example, there is no share class, different share class. So the crowd owns the same shares I do. Yeah. So that was really the idea, and that has proven to be quite successful. So since then, we have helped a lot of companies to do the same, and we help them on several aspects. Of course, the technical aspect, and this is something we're quite proud of. It's called the Bridge Protocol. Basically, we work also very closely with CMTA. So the idea of the Bridge Protocol is how can you embed rules, so by using a rule engine, in order to restrict the transferability of any token based on a set of rules that could be first compliance, regulatory, but that could be also functional. For example, shares, you know, sometimes you have a shareholder agreement that you have in place, you know, with tag alone, drag alone, right of first refusal, and all those clauses that you can indeed pre-program into it, so that during the life cycle of your token, it would respect the shareholder agreement. For example, you know, you have employees, you want to give them shares, but you don't want them to leave the next day with the pile of shares. So maybe you have a vesting period over 5 years with maybe a cliff at the beginning and stuff like that. You know? So that's really amazing how you can create a digital cockpit to pilot a company today. You know, and that's what we do. So on every year, we organize our annual general meeting in our wallet. Yeah, so that means that if you own at least one token, so it's called the MPS token, the Pelerin shares. If you own at least one, then you have access to the public room. And when you access the public room, you will see me as the president, obviously presenting. And then people can ask questions. And then, of course, then there is the on-chain vote. You know, but, I mean, it's boring vote because it's like, you know, like allocation of the profit and loss and re-election of the board, etc. But at least for the governance part, you know, people are having a digital experience of it. You know, and today, of course, we need that because we have like thousands and thousands of shareholders. So, of course, we won't rent Palexpo to do our annual general meeting. So that's so something cool, that you know, that's something that we like a lot. That's not really a business today, to be honest. It's more philanthropy. Everything is open source, and basically anyone can do it on their own. Yeah? With CMTA, they have created a blueprint, so it's very easy for them to learn and do it on their own. And the tools are completely free and it's open source. Of course, at the end, if they want to raise money, they need companies like us or like Bitcoin Suisse to actually do the compliance of it, so documenting the origin of the fund, having a KYC on each and every participant, making sure that your funds at the end are bankable. Yeah, so that's really the added value of the service where we do have a business. So.
Yeah, at that interface really between like the crypto and traditional world. And it's actually really exciting to hear about cases where you're not just creating a duplication, right? Where you have, oh, here's all the traditional legal contracts and we just like embed something, you know, and you actually are removing that redundancy, which is very cool. Yeah. And just being a bit conscious of time, Dan, we said we'd also talk a little bit about what you were most excited about going forward in terms of new products in the embedded finance space.
Yeah, embedded finance, that's our main topic and as well our most popular product. And I think there, in particular, it's our card as a service solution. We are rolling out now for private banks. That's very exciting for us because traditional offerings for specific private banks, or could be as well Web3 companies, they are very limited in terms of customization, tailor-made products, and we, with our solution, we have there really a complete new approach. So whenever it comes to issuing cards, debit cards, credit cards, prepaid cards, that's something we think really that we have found a new way how to resolve that part. And yeah, I think that's really something we're really looking into it. And yeah, upcoming next month, we will see how it evolves and how many banks we can convince to follow our process there, and open as well to have discussions about cars for crypto companies.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned banks a bit, but I suppose it's a lot of potential use cases with corporates who want to use you instead of, well, to have digital banking embedded in their process, right?
Indeed, there is a study out, especially for the European market, tells that within the next 3 years there is a revenue potential about 300 billion euros around. And currently, for example, in the UK, there are already 20% of the companies are using embedded finance products. This number to be expected for growing up to almost 70% within the next couple of years. I think embedded finance has there a huge demand and a huge potential, and we already feel that. So yeah, our sales pipeline is quite full.
Cool. And hopefully there's some opportunities for you to do something with Arnaud to get you into the crypto space too, right? So that when we have this conversation next year, then I'll ask you all the crypto questions. Cool. And maybe from you guys, does anybody else want to talk about what they're most excited about going forward in terms of products that you have on the pipeline?
From our perspective, we are pretty excited about the progress that we're seeing in terms of EigenLayer and restaking. I mean, obviously the first hurdle for some firms is understanding ETH staking, but as soon as they get past that, I already have some of them calling me up saying, okay, now I'm staking, but I want more revenue. I want more rewards. So I think that anything where people can restake and earn more rewards is obviously instantly attractive to some people. I think there's going to be caution to be exercised, but I think that the progress there is very interesting. We are also the first validator to be working with the Stacks Foundation. So we will be launching essentially Bitcoin staking via the Stacks token. That obviously opens up a whole other part of the market that are long-term holders of an asset anyway, to generating additional returns by holding and staking their assets. That will be via the Stacks token itself. So that's interesting, exciting. I think, you know, as an industry overall, this year feels promising. It feels like there's some really interesting and exciting new projects launching. It feels like we kind of just come out of the clouds up above a little bit, and so I think for us, not only the stuff we're working on, but just the industry in general, it seems like a positive year.
Oh, I hope so. Then
I can just confirm the excitement about EigenLayer and Stacks. We're observing both of them, especially yield for Bitcoin is something they all have been like waiting for forever. Adding on to that, I think on our side, the banking or investable products is where I believe we will have a big, hopefully big success. We're actually, end of this week, we're launching our first ETP.
cool.
Our issuance partner is launching it, basically Valor. And that's based on a blueprint index issued by Stock, so Contigo, so Europe's biggest index provider, where we built that index with stocks. So it's a basket of blue chips, and it's basically bridging the TradFi with crypto. And there's been a lot of ETPs around. I think there haven't been any ETPs with baskets with that type of methodology behind. So hopefully we're pioneering.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome. Yeah, I think so. As we sort of come toward an end, I think we could probably summarize to say that even though we have a number of actually fairly different companies actually with a diverse product set, there's a lot of similar challenges within at least the product development process. And one of the things that stuck out for me is that you know, there's a lot that traditional finance needs to learn from crypto, but maybe as we start to develop in a regulated environment, as we start to develop with clients on the platform, maybe the things that we can learn from TradFi as well. Yeah, I'm very excited to hear that there's a lot to look forward to in 2024. So thanks very much for the time and the engaging conversation.
Thank you.